Welcome to Holyrude Ungagged Westminster Election Special, the anti-fascist milkshake of election previews. I am your host, David McClemont, broadcasting from the Blantyre Free State, and joining me is a plethora of political obsessives ready to wildly speculate on the result of today's election. First up, when she's not writing furious polemics, she's fiddling with her friends. It's Ungagged's righteous fury, Val Waldron.
Hello,
Hi Val, how you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Yep.
How's the election campaign been for you so far?
I quite spent quite a lot of it with my head in the sand, I have to say, because it's infuriating. But I'm kind of glad it's coming to an end at the moment. So it's nail biting. It's squeaky bum time, isn't it? Really.
I can echo those sentiments, definitely. And next up, when he's usually mixing with the great and the good, interviewing the bigwigs of Scottish politics, but tonight he's slumming it with the plebs. It's the man with the velvety voice, Mr. Neil Anderson.
Good evening, everyone. That's a marvellous description. Thank you.
And how's that same question? How's your election campaign been?
It has been good. I've actually enjoyed it. I didn't create a TikTok account. I created one ages ago, but I actually went back and looked at it for all the political things and all the stupid TikToks that the main political parties were making. So that was, in some ways, was annoying. In some ways, it was quite fun because they're just trying to be down with the kids, to use an old phrase, and they just made an arse of it.
Still got it, Neil. Still got it. And our third guest is author of the newly released novel Sangre de Toro and host of the Hidden Wings and Bloodlust podcast. It's Rachael Horwitz. Welcome, Rachael. How have you been finding this election campaign?
Quite well. I mean, it's like kind of. So basically, I just I'm very glad that the Tories are probably going to lose. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that they are, because it will just I can't quite believe down. I know up in Scotland it's a bit different, but down here no one really can. I think nobody can really quite believe what's happening. But also, I'm fairly unenthusiastic about much of Labour's offering, I've got to say.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get many dissenting voices. I don't think you'll get many dissenting voices about that. Yeah. So the first question, it's the most obvious one, is who do we all think is going to win? Rachael?
Me? Maybe... Perhaps the SDP. Perhaps the SDP, they might win.
I was going to say, it's not a trick question. I think we all know, according to every single opinion polls going back for the last don't know how long, we're looking at a landslide Labour victory. So what are people's initial feelings in about that, Val?
I'm feeling that, well, I don't know, but yeah, probably a landslide. At the end of the day, see, when people go to put that X in the box, I don't know how many Tories will be able to vote Labour or Reform for that matter. So maybe just not quite as much as we thought. I think a lot of the red wall places like that will revert to Labour, but I'm just not sure how much. But yeah, I think the Tories are toast. I think that's quite a safe assumption, to be fair.
Neil?
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I mean, the different polls have got differing figures of how much the majority is going to be. I wouldn't like to make any prediction on that, but I think it's fairly safe to say that it will be Labour who will have the majority of seats. By whatever margin, maybe we'll find out, but aye.
Yeah, I feel this is feeling very 1997, which I think will probably come up a few times. I'm trying to stay in the moment because 97, I was only 15 and I'd never known, and I'd lived my whole life under a Tory government at that point. So I was so enthusiastic at the end of the Tories, and I buried my head in the sand about New Labour. I I wasn't excited about them, but I pretended to myself and lied to myself that I was excited. So I find myself as a grizzled veteran now in the same situation where I cannot kid myself on about this new Labour, this Starmer-led Labour Party. And it's really difficult to get enthusiastic. As great as it's going to be to see the Tories go, you know, to have them replaced by, you know, Tory light, which is, to be honest, being quite kind to them. So I've got much mixed emotions about the potential result.
Well, Starmer has done exactly the same in many ways as Blair, and one thing in exactly the same way is chasing up business. You know, he's gone and tried to court businesses, and have the Labour Party have proudly said they're the party of business. So that they've gone and they've chased people and said that they're not going to do anything that will harm them, and they've got business on their side. And that was exactly the same as Blair did.
Yeah. It's been what they call, the commentators are calling it the Ming Vaz election, which is a bit ironic considering some are calling it the change election. Might not just been their word for it. But he's done nothing. Really, he's given. In fact, I think he's scraped away at people's hopes and expectations quite significantly, and yet, you know, the polls keep rising, including Scotland. I guess that's, for me, the elephant in the room. What the hell is going to happen here? That's the worry.
Yeah, but I've been speaking to some kind of Labour people over the time, and some of the people have been around for a while and are just on the Labour Party because they're on the left, you know, are surprised by the number of people who have always voted Labour and are still voting Labour and haven't noticed how much the Labour Party has changed. And I mean, Starmer keeps saying he's changed the party, and he has. The reason Corbyn didn't get in and was slated so much is because he was going to shake things up. It's going to start doing some redistribution of wealth and that kind of thing. And that the establishment just went for him, and got all the media around it as well. And Starmer's seen that and he's gone, right. He said from day one, we've got to get into power. We've got to get into power. We've got to get into power. That's how he started off as leader of the Labour Party, was talking about getting into power and then doing things afterwards. So that's always been in his mind. And one of it is becoming part of the establishment and getting yourself ingrained in there so that you won't be thrown out by them and slagged off and the public made to feel that you'd ruin their life. So he's done that.
Sorry.
On you, Rachel.
I think that it's interesting because I think that's basically I think that it's quite noticeable that even though he's definitely trying to do that, the Tories are still going for him. Like I found it quite interesting that the Times, for example, came out with a very, I mean, I don't really think these things matter anymore more than they ever used to. They matter a lot less than they used to, but basically the Times came out with a really, really endorsement that was not an endorsement. It was just like, yeah, well, the Tories have got have run down the country and all of these, but Keir Starmer's a terrible guy, but you should maybe vote for him anyway, but possibly just vote Tory, and that was counting as a newspaper endorsement from the Times. And then you've got the all of those kind of Tory attacks on him, saying that oh well, if he's with his family after 6 o'clock, then what happens if the UK gets bombed at 1 minute past 6? Yeah, that was what the Tories are recently, because basically he wants to on a Friday he wants to spend. He says that he likes to spend time with his family past 6 o'clock, and the Tories immediately come out with, oh, but what happens if the UK gets bombed at 1 minute past 6 and the Prime Minister doesn't want to do any work?
I don't think it Sunak did himself any favours at all with that one. Nor did they by wheeling out Johnson, looking more like fabricant by the minute. Yeah,
like the Mummy or like Frankenstein or someone, didn't he?
Yeah, I just think if anybody was swithering at that point, I think Sunak trying to pretend that we are the Tory family back together with that idiot bouncing around, I think that would probably seal it. So that was
I think what we saw with the media in this election is that they know Starmer's not a threat to the sort of established powers and power structures. And as much as, there'll still be some negative sort of things about him in the press, it's a much more kind of open, unbalanced, like fairly balanced approach that the media take, which is not something we're always used to seeing. 100% if it was more a Corbyn-style figure in charge of the Labour Party, despite the Tories in complete collapse and freefall, the media would be putting a lot more effort into propping them up than they are. Whereas we're basically seeing the establishment allow the Tories to collapse because they feel they've got an alternative, as opposed to, the working class having an alternative government that's going to help them. And in that sense, they don't need to go over the top in attacking Starmer any more than, you would get in an honest sort of election.
Yeah, I don't know because, I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but the newspapers down here, as you can probably imagine, are pretty unhinged. There was one in the Daily Express that was the Tory party's threatened. On its front page, it literally said the Tory party is being pounded into the ground. We need someone to carry the torch of conservatism to the next generation. And it was basically this huge long rant about how the Tories were threatened and how everyone needs to vote Tory down here, I know that in Scotland is not going to work because I think Labour are kind of an alternative party up there for Tories a lot of the time anyway. But down here, it's it's still just the same kind of and the Daily Mail's Labour's going to put up your taxes, stop, vote Tory to stop Starmageddon, I know that clearly, obviously, Corbyn was going to get attacked worse, and I think that. I think that for me, it's quite noticeable that even though he is kind of now more of an establishment figure, that is not always being reflected in what the media are saying here. Yeah,
I would say up here the unhinged newspapers already support Labour by and large, so they've not felt as threatened. So I think it's probably been a bit more kind of relaxed and less hysterical from their point of view.
Yeah, I think they've always just attacked the SNP up there, whereas here it's they're still Tories, I'm afraid.
But interestingly, well, I don't know. I've thought about this a lot. Buyer's remorse thing. The newspapers can bounce. They like to support a winner, but people, once they've taken a risk and thought, well, I'm voting whatever way this time, they don't like to admit they're wrong or whatever. I don't know. I could take quite a lot of waste and destruction before people who. This is why I'm a little. So I'm going a wee bit off track here, but a wee bit concerned that 2 years isn't far enough away to protect Holyrude from Labour up here, because I think it takes people a wee while to realise that they've, admit that they've made a mistake. So I don't know. I just don't know. It feels like the general public are just in slow motion a wee bit behind the media.
Moving on a wee bit, just talking about more specifically Scotland. So how do people think basically who'll win the most Scottish seats? Val?
Well, it looks like the SNP have had a wee bounce back in the last couple of days, but then again, just looking at general polls, I mean, they changed a bit. Like I was saying earlier, people reverting back to their kind of loyalties a wee bit more. I think what concerns me is that if people who are not going to get their ballot papers in time, or people who are not going to have their ID there, or people that can't be bothered getting it to be, I think they're quite often more likely to be MP voters or whatever than Labour voters who want this change thing. I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair there, but it's maybe not so much it's about seats, isn't it? The whole votes and seats are a different thing altogether. I mean, Labour's more of a threat along the across the central belt where, it's quite kind of a density of seats. So I don't know. It's anybody's guess. I kind of think, I don't know. I'm not terribly hopeful.
It's difficult to call because the nature of first past the post, you can lose a couple of percentage points in your overall vote. But because of the way first past the post works, your number of seats can just fall off a cliff, which is kind of what happened to Labour. I should have looked this up, but in 2015, I don't think their vote dramatically collapsed in terms of falling into single digits, but we saw what happened. It was that tipping point that came and all the seats like dominoes off flipped from SNP to Labour, and I think the opinion polls are all sort of floating around that tipping point, so we could be talking at a couple of percentage points either way. Could have the SNP holding off in a number of seats and coming out looking like the winner in Scotland, or they could end up with like just a handful of seats.
Well, certainly all the seats in Glasgow are very close between SNP and Labour. And Anne McLaughlin, who's interviewing on Tuesday, she lost the election in, when was it? 2017?
2017.
By 242 votes.
There was a few like that, weren't there? Right? Yeah.
And then got back in 2019, but 2017, so it was 2015, she was voted in, and then 2 years later, Paul Sweeney won it with less than 300 votes in between.
It's also, we've got a kind of situation here where, I think there's a good chance the Tories will get wiped out in Scotland if even the opinion polls are half right. And I think in all of these seats, the SNP are in second place. So you could see a strange thing where Labour does take a lot of seats off the SNP, but it's kind of the losses are mitigated because the SNP might pick up a lot of the Tory seats, which, as a progressive in Scotland, is maybe could be not a good thing as well, because that might see a more right-wing SNP group at Westminster, because it's sort of people for the sort of Aberdeenshire seats where it's much more about based around the oil and gas industry than sort of Glasgow seats who have the more left-wing MPs.
Yeah, we're not hearing much of Douglas Ross since he made a few boo-boos, are we? I don't know. I haven't seen so much of him lately, so that would be, I don't know whether he's poised to lose his seat or not. I'm not seeing that anywhere, but
I think, the sort of rather undignified way that he ran to grab the seat off the Tory MP that took ill suggests that it's probably one of the safest Tory seats, but nowhere safe in Scotland for the Tories. But I think if they hold on to one seat, that might be it, which is, like I said, why he so undignifiedly ran to snatch the seat from the hospital bed of his colleague.
Yeah.
But is that right, that the Labour candidate isn't standing anymore? Is that right? Was he taken off for some reason, or was that my imagination?
What's this?
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
What Labour candidate?
And is it Douglas Ross's constituency where he's standing?
Is it
Gordon
constituency?
I don't think apparently he's still standing, but he got told to stop his campaign and go and campaign somewhere else in the middle of his campaign. And the reason they gave for that is because, like, apparently, I'm not saying I believe this, I'm just saying, like, this is what I've heard. This is like the rationale. Basically, they think that at the moment it's a largely Tory seat, and probably Labour is going to lose anyway. And so they didn't want to split the vote and potentially let Farage in. So now they're asking for a vote for the Tory, and they say they can deal with, like, a shit Tory and won a seat. But I don't know, because I've heard, like, so many different things about it. I don't know what to believe. It all just seems very, very strange, and it does seem weird that he just suddenly got asked to stop his campaign. And it, like, because there's like some strange, but the thing is, the odd thing about it is that, like, the candidate himself hasn't said anything. This is all, like, people that have been campaigning for him. So, like, whether he still feels that he's in the campaign and or what's happened, I don't know. Like, it seems a very, very odd situation.
I think he's standing in the Murray constituency, which I'm just trying to double check that as we're talking. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, no, I thought you were talking about the guy that was standing against Farage.
No, standing against Douglas Ross.
Oh, sorry.
But we learned something there. I think I got you just there, but yeah.
I'm so sorry. I could, because when I heard about the Labour guy that got told to go somewhere else, I thought that no, that guy is, like, still standing. He's just not campaigning. But yeah, I don't know about the guy in Scotland. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about the Labour candidate withdrawn, which.
Well, I've got a suspended Labour candidate says
suspended.
He's been hung out to dry.
Is this up in Scotland then?
Yeah, the Tory leader Douglas Ross is his constituency. Yeah, he decided that a very ill candidate in the seat should just be kicked aside, and he would take over. And it's not gone down well. I think quite a bit of Tory loyalty.
I've heard about this. This was basically this was a guy who was standing for the Tories, and he got ill, and Douglas Ross just kept him away and
elbowed him out of the way. Yeah, essentially.
So if he's suspended, I think he'll still be in the ballot. So most people, if they want to vote Labour, will still be able to vote Labour. So I don't think that'll have a huge impact in the result.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Let's hope not, because I think we'd all happily see Douglas Ross losing his seat.
Yeah.
So.
And he's also stood down as Tory leader, so that would be him down to just 2 jobs, which would be MSP and football referee. So,
Can I just ask, does the Scottish Parliament have PR?
It has the additional member system.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have constituencies, but you then have top-up seats based on a regional list system. So basically it gives you a much fairer representation of the actual vote compared to Westminster. Neil, did I get your prediction? Who do you think will come out on top? In Scotland?
Yeah, I think I said that it's very difficult. I suppose I kind of talked around it. I wouldn't like to say that at all. There is very much a contest between Labour and SNP, and as we've just been saying with first past the post, you can lose out by a small margin, and somebody has won a particular seat, and they don't have to have the majority of votes overall. They just have to have the largest number.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Parliament at the moment, Westminster Parliament at the moment, like the Conservatives actually got 43% of the overall vote, but they ended up with over 80-seat majority.
Yeah.
Which,
I can never quite get my head round all that, how that works. It's the same with reform, isn't it? I mean, they could have a lot of votes, but few seats and stuff, but I'm sure it's quite simple. It's just hard.
If the SNP do get an absolute hiding, like, you know, reduced to like a handful of seats, do you think John Swinney will carry the can for that, or do you think because he's recently in the door he'll kind of get given a pass?
Do you mean carry the can in terms of the media, the membership,
Yeah, well, more the sort of membership and the other elected reps. Do you think they would maybe think about replacing them again?
No, I think
surely
no.
We can't have 4 first ministers in a year or just over a year. I don't think MD would put that on him, actually.
What makes me afraid is that Kate will be pushed further forward, to be honest. Because there's quite a lot of concession towards him. But no, I don't think he's going to... I think he'll do what he said he was going to do. He's going to be there beyond the 2026 election.
I would think so too. I wouldn't see MD challenging him on that.
I mentioned 1997 earlier. One of my best political memories is that night watching as all the sort of big cabinet ministers, the big beasts, lost their jobs and get humiliated. It feels like that is almost certain to happen again to a certain extent. Is there anybody that you've got your eye on that you're looking forward to seeing standing there with that kind of shit-eating grin as their opponents gets announced as a new MP?
I did a bit of homework on that, actually, because the Guardian had a nice article with the risk factors on it.
I knew you would enjoy this bit, Val.
Yeah. Well, Ian Duncan Smith, we've got a 4 out of 5 risk. Grant Sharps has got a 3 out of 5 risk. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, 3 out of 5. Penny Mordaunt, that would be a scalp, 3 out of 5 to the Lib Dems. And Jeremy Hunt, 4 out of 5, they're reckoning. So these would all be good takes.
An interesting one to watch is in Bristol, where it's actually a good chance that the Labour MP is going to lose her seat, which will be like kind of hilarious that she loses her seat in a Labour landslide, because she looks like she's going to lose her seat to the Greens.
Yes.
And that might be quite an interesting one to watch. In terms of who I want to lose the seats, I'm honestly hoping that the Tories get less than 20 seats. And I think there's a good chance of that, because I think I think there's a very good chance that they will be down to like 17. That would be a good number for them.
There's no been opinion polls putting them that low, is there?
No, I just hope so.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we can all join you in that.
Yeah,
like I don't know that there's an opinion poll that says that that's what's going to happen, but I just think it would be amazing if it happens.
I did see one that put them as low as 65, which is kind of mind-boggling.
The lowest I've seen is 44.
Wow.
Oof.
Yeah.
Whoa, from about 300 and something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But what it also goes to show is that, like, you know, if Boris Johnson can win a majority in 2019, and then like 5 years later this could suffer the worst defeat in history, like what does that say to me about Keir Starmer's government? Because, you know, if that's happened to Boris Johnson, the same thing can surely happen to Keir Starmer again. Or, you know, like it doesn't, you know, previously when the Tories have got in, that's been it for that's been basically it for 14 years. And now it just seems like, again, like if Keir Starmer gets in, there's no guarantee that in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, that's going to be it. Like anything can happen now.
Neil, you were going to say something?
I was going to say that's the whole nature of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's only if they carry the people along with them that they stay in power. And Tories have been able to sustain that for a few parliaments over the years as well. But you get to a point where people don't like what they're doing, and it very much depends on what Starmer's government does. over the next 4 or 5 years as to whether it's hounded out or stays on.
What do I think was the tipping point? Was it like the COVID stuff or trusts and a mixture of all these things? Because it was quite a change, really.
I think it was a kind of snowball effect. There was, maybe the stuff around Boris Johnson and COVID and the resignations started it. I think, definitely trusts coming in and imploding almost immediately. And it all kept feeding into this narrative of just chaos and incompetence. But I think it'd probably be difficult to pinpoint one single moment. Neil, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it was a combination. I think certainly the COVID with the parties created a bad feeling in the first place from very many people. And then, trust coming in, the markets not liking what she did. We live by the markets these days, and lots of people's mortgages going absolutely through the roof. And I think that brought cost of living to an awful lot of people. So main cost of living crisis is with people with not so much money, but people who had money and they'd gone and got their nice fancy house at a nice big price when their mortgage was at 1% and it went up to 4%, and that's a huge difference. And that would definitely have kept going on there, and it not happening and not changing, I think it's just kept everybody really discontented.
Is there anybody that you're looking forward to possibly losing their seat?
Well, kind of in that vein, what I'm hoping is that a certain person doesn't get made a lord, but I think they will. Which is Michael Gove. So he's not standing, and I'm just hoping that he's not on the list of honours that Sunak puts out when he leaves for being made a lord, but I suspect he will.
And unfortunately, the UK system as it is, we can't vote on that. So if it does happen, there's very little we can do about it.
Yeah.
Rachel, is there somebody that you're hoping gets voted out?
Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
That would be good.
It would work well, wouldn't it?
I really hope he loses his seat. I would just find it so funny. And Liz Truss as well. I think that would be pretty amazing if that happens.
I think she's in a safe seat, actually.
No, but like, I mean, I will be like absolutely. I would think absolutely amazing if Rishi Sunak like I'm kind of like, it's interesting because like some of my friends who also like follow politics and stuff, they're like, oh yeah, it would be funny if he's actually one of the surviving Tories, like if he's one of the 60 or one of the 80 or one of the, and he has to like every day he has to go into Parliament and like just be reminded of the mess he's created.
I mean, again, the strange UK system. I mean, you need to be an MP to be Prime Minister, but or a member of one of the houses of Parliament.
You can be a Lord and be Prime Minister.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, if he loses his election, he'll still be Prime Minister because until the King dismisses him. So he'll in fact be Prime Minister while not being a member of Parliament. So we'll see how that goes.
You have to be a. God, if Charles is just like no, actually I don't like UK or I want Rishi Sunak, that would like create a huge constitutional crisis.
Well, I mean, what I mean is he'd still be Prime Minister until he resigned.
Yeah. Well,
technically, there are no MPs at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a Prime Minister, but so none of them. There's no MPs at the moment. There is the Prime Minister and Minister of Defence and whatever else. They carry on those roles, but so he doesn't actually have to resign because, he's not an MP, so he doesn't have to resign from being one.
There is one name that's not been mentioned yet that I would love to see lose his seat, and that's Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yeah, I know. I was, totally with you, totally.
Yeah.
He's not been mentioned on the.
But he's gonna get made. I bet he's gonna get made a lord as well.
Lord,
Well,
you can just hear it.
I mean, they can't make them all lords.
Can't
What
they?
a good try.
And I don't think he's popular with Sunak, so I don't know if that would happen. If he'd be honest, he looks the part as a lord, so if he just turned up, they'd probably let him in. And then he'd be in there for years, and then somebody go, wait a minute, he never actually get made. Well, he's here now. Look, he's got a monocle. So
He looks
he's here
get
now. What
away
are you
with
going to do about it?
He looks the part of a slave ship owner, let alone a lord. Yeah.
He's got a top hat and everything. Of course, he deserves to be in the House of Lords.
Yeah.
But that would be great to see him humbled, just like Michael Portillo back in '97.
Yeah, it's what I was reading a Bella Caledonia article the other day there. I mean, this election is not like any other election we're used to, really. But it talks about it's set in Scotland. Sorry, Rachel, just
No, it's fine.
focus there. But
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry. It's for progressives, there's going to be the Schadenfreude and a few moments of joy, like last time when when Joe Swinson got beat, things like that. But then it was balanced out by a Tory landslide. But yeah, that will be fun, but that doesn't last forever. But yeah, it's just what happens next. It's quite a scary time. So. I don't know. I'm scared to stay. I'm scared to go to bed, and I'm scared to stay up all night. God knows. I'm just going to turn into a beast during the night.
Well, we've spoken about the sort of broad strokes of this election, but there's the sort of various subplots going on. You mentioned one earlier, Rachel. The Green Party of England and Wales.
Yeah.
They're hoping to defend Brighton Pavilion.
Yeah.
And hoping to win Bristol Central. So Caroline Lucas has been the Green MP for Brighton Pavilion since 2010.
Yeah.
She's increased her majority at every election since then, but she's standing down. So the question is whether the Greens will be able to hold on to that seat with her as the candidate.
Yeah.
And then there's Bristol Central, which is a new seat. It's mostly made from Bristol West, where the Greens were comfortably in second place, but still quite behind Labour. But I think the Greens feel they've closed ground, and the boundary changes has also been helpful to them. So they're very hopeful of taking Bristol Central.
Yeah.
What are folks thinking on that, Rachel?
Me, I don't know. The thing is, it's really hard to say, because I think a lot of people that would usually vote for Green or Lib Dem, or I think a lot of people are scared that, because no one really can quite believe that this is actually happening. I think a lot of people I think the Greens have got a good chance of winning, but also I think a lot of people are quite worried that it's not going to happen and the Tories could just like magically creep back in. So I wouldn't like to say that I think the Greens will take it, because I've got no idea. I think that at the very least it will be very close, but who knows? I mean, what do you think about it?
Well, I was going to ask Neil Anderson, as he's a Scottish Green. What his opinion on the Green Party of England Wales chances are?
Well, I think the two that mentioned are certainly possibilities. Some polls have shown them in, more seats than two, but I would think realistically, if they can double their numbers, that would be good, because you've got to start it somewhere in that. And I think with more people getting experience in doing that, because certainly noticed that up here in Glasgow when we've been doing stuff for local elections and things, there is the kind of rolling or the kind of snowball effect type thing of you do get better bit by bit, because you get more people involved, you get better people going out canvassing, campaigning, get better at doing it, and know more what to do. And I think that's happening with them taking on what they've done in Brighton Pavilion for a number of years now. always had people coming from around the UK to help them out with campaigning down there, and they've had the same in Bristol. There's been people coming in from around the UK to do as much campaigning as they can. So I'm hopeful that they'll get those 2 seats, and it would be good to see, because they're getting close to some of the other people around the country in places, and I hope they get close enough to actually be the first at the post.
I think there was 2 other seats, which are, I can't remember the names of the constituents, but there were 2 rural Tory-held seats that they were hopeful of, but I think that's in their wildest dreams. I think 4 seats is what they're looking at as their sort of dream scenario.
The Bristol one, again, I had to kind of look it up really because I didn't know much about it, but the community, so multicultural community in Gaza has been a big issue there, I mean, which has not been mentioned an awful lot mainstream wise, but so I mean, she's standing against the shadow cultural secretary. That would be a big win, and possibly with a few hundred votes in it. So it sounds quite possible. This would be.
I think
fantastic.
Yeah, that's Thingam Debonair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's again, I keep talking about the first past the post system, but it's so difficult for a party like the Green Party in England and Wales to make that breakthrough, and they've got to become sort of regionalised and focused on these sort of individual points where they can break through. I mean, but there is a chance that with this national sort of swing to Labour, that the local issues will just get overrode, and you could see Labour taking Brighton, and that would just be a hammer blow to the amount of work that's been put in over the last, well, I was going to say 14 years that Caroline Luke has been MP, but obviously the work would have been in years before that to win it the first time. And it's just, again, hammers the unfairness of the first past the post system, that is a possibility.
Mm-hmm. And yet, I mean, I don't know how much you're aware of this, Rachel, but you still see people up here saying they're only a list MP, they're useless. It's just not as valued as it should be as a system. It's definitely far preferable to the first past the post.
It is 5 minutes as we're recording till the polls close, so we're hoping to be able to react live to the exit polls when it comes through, so hopefully that will be through not long after 10, but until then we'll just keep chatting. And that's the other couple of subplots going on is obviously, will Jeremy Corbyn win as an independent in Islington North? I mean, he's got a huge majority, he gets 64% of the vote in 2019, but we've also seen that incumbent MPs that run as independents against their old party don't, as a rule, come out very well in that.
Well, one thing from people around the country going to help campaigning in different areas, I know from speaking to somebody last night who has been down there in Islington helping campaign for Jeremy Corbyn. There was other people there too, so there was a huge number of people down there to help Corbyn campaign. So, and I think Corbyn will be elected as an MP, because it's not just, he's been leader of the parties and in and out of the news for the past 6, 7, 8 years now. So it's, it's known. It's not as if it's just somebody who decided to leave a party and then stand as an independent.
Val?
Yeah, I mean, has he actually ever lost a seat at an election in the last however many years? I don't know. I think he win. I couldn't really conceive of him not winning, especially the way he's been treated. Just imagine it will, and that'll be very interesting. That would be a bit of a blow to Starmer and the right. So I really, really hope he will. Really hope he will.
Rachel, do you think his chances are? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I
can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's really I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to say. like clearly like he does have a lot of support down there, but whether or not that will actually translate to getting the vote. I mean, I'd say like another issue is the sheer like number of independent candidates, and this is not like, I mean, like this time, for example, my seat is a safe Labour seat, and there are 12 candidates standing in the area. So some people might not even look to think it's Corbyn. They might just see like independent and just like do what they've always done and just put Labour. I mean, it's and also there's the other issue that like it's really hard to get stuff done as an independent. Like, although he was treated badly by the Labour Party, like he still had the party machinery behind him. It's so hard to do that as an independent candidate. So I think it's very difficult to say what will happen in that seat. But I was going to say another thing. The interesting, going back to, I think it was your point, Neil, about the regionalisation. I think that's very right, because I think like there are certain seats, especially in the southeast, where personally I don't think really Labour have much of a chance, because that area has always been it's gone from Tory to Lib Dem, and I think Labour would have quite an uphill battle just because of the kind of like the fact that it's made up of a lot of like rural people, like a lot of farmers and stuff, and a lot of some like wealthy people, but also just like the kind of people that live down there have not necessarily got a tradition of voting Labour. Like they might all have like sort of quote unquote like working class jobs and stuff, but they're not traditional Labour supporters. And I think the Lib Dems have a huge potential to take a lot of the seats in those kind of like Tory areas, and we'll see what happens, because if Starmer wants to get those people's support, a lot of them will like find that just through tradition, I suppose, like find that quite difficult to switch their vote to Labour. So I think the Lib Dems will get quite a lot of seats, and also possibly Reform as well, unfortunately.
What you're saying about earlier about Corbyn, I did hear something that a lot of the Corbyn activists were worried about, is they were on the doorsteps, they were finding a lot of support for Corbyn. There was a lot of people confused as to whether seem to still think he was a Labour candidate.
That's what I thought as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and for us that are sort of like very engaged in politics, I think we can forget that. But the people that aren't engaged with politics, a lot of this detail passes them by.
They will just see Labour and then just vote for that.
But then, do you know, I mean, sometimes you can, they'll also see in alphabetical order Corbyn. It can be silly as that, like those kiddo and Greens that tried to pull the wool over people's eyes in a council, as a fascist.
Well, the most infamous example of that was like I think it was a UKIP member about in the 1997 election that tried to stand, and he called himself literal Democrats. And he got like loads of votes as well, I think.
Yeah. The BBC have put up their exit poll.
Right, go for it.
They've got Labour on 410, Conservative 131, Lib Dems 61, Reform 13, SNP 10, Plaid Cymru, however you say that, apologies to MD who speaks Welsh, 4, Greens 2, and others 19.
Well,
don't know what to say to that.
I mean, if that's the result, it's obviously quite a bad one for the SNP.
Dreadful.
It's a horrific result for the Tories, but they've comfortably held second place, which I think some polls were saying it wasn't certain.
So that is just to quote the source. It says on it, Ipsos for BBC, ITV News, and Sky News.
Did you say 10 for SNP?
Yep.
Oh my God. Oh well.
But I mean, polls can be wrong. Like,
Well,
remember Donald Trump. I just always remember that. Like polls can be wrong.
Exit polls are usually a bit more
Pretty
reliable
good.
though than
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
especially once Sir John Curtis kicks in on it, wherever he is, he's pretty sound.
I mean, I was about to ask you about, Farage's chances in Clacton. I mean, I think if Reform are getting 13 seats, that means we're getting Nigel Farage MP.
Yeah.
13? What? 13?
That's what it's saying.
The next poll says, yeah.
Yes, like you, Rachel, I think it's time to engage the bleeper button. I feel the same.
Fucking hell. 13 seats? That's not... does it say where the seats are?
It doesn't. We don't. I mean, this is still an exit
That's
poll.
exit
We can't
poll.
take it as gospel, but it's I'm sure in the
13,
past they've been
that is
fairly
just-
accurate.
What the...
It's a huge breakthrough.
Mhm.
What about Alba just comes under and others?
13 seats. 13 seats, like, and others 19. I guess some of that will be like George Galloway and like kind of like.
I think a lot
Jeremy
of them will be
Corbyn.
a lot of them with the Northern Ireland
They'll be-
parties.
Now, there's a thing that I was thinking about George Galloway. That would be a nice lose.
No,
Well, I
actually,
bloody hope so. I hope
There-
he's lost. But
And,
There's a-
and
there's a caveat here that says the exit poll is not held in Northern Ireland, so the 18 seats there appear as others.
Right.
oh,
So there's
So
others as 18
there-
seats in Northern Ireland and one more.
so that's one that's unaccounted for. So we're hoping that's Jeremy Corbyn rather than George Galloway.
well, who
Yes.
knows?
Definitely.
Who knows? I mean, but mind you, it says here others 25. It says on the BBC that I'm looking at. It says
Yes.
others 25. So if we say 18 is in Northern Ireland, then that's another like 6 seat.
I don't know.
Can't
It's
do-
Plaid.
yeah, 7
Plaid have
seats.
got- Plaid have got 4 and Green have got 2. So that's
Right,
6. And the
I think what
19
I think what
makes
you're looking at,
25.
I think what you're seeing, Rachel, is get less of a complete breakdown.
Yeah,
The thing I've got here, it's got Plaid and 4
Yeah.
and Greens and 2.
because this is what it says on mine. It says other, and other is grey, but I think other also includes the Greens.
Yeah.
oh,
That's what I'm
There we
looking
go.
mhm.
at. Right.
Oh yeah, that's
So-
what it says. That's
uh-huh.
what it says. Exit poll.
Yeah.
The 18 seats appear as other.
Yes.
So we obviously don't know whereabouts these seats are likely to be, and maybe this is hopium talking, but in
Yeah.
Scotland, maybe the vagaries of the first past the post might mean there might be a bit more SNP MPs than that's indicating.
And just how narrow what's the word I'm looking for? How close it is in some areas.
Yeah.
Mhm. Like, almost sometimes it's been single figures. I remember there was one about a couple, recounts and everything. Anyway, that's clutching at straws. I think this is Labour's time.
Mm.
So just to recap, the exit poll saying Labour to have a huge majority with 410 seats, the Tories in a horrific result for them, pretty wonderful result for everybody else of 131 seats. The Lib Dems sort of re-establishing themselves as a sort of third party that they've traditionally been on 61, and then Reform on 13, which would be the biggest result for the far right in the UK for ever? I don't know. Yeah.
I really hope
Yeah.
the northeast Scotland, I hope they have it, because it was at the northeast that they've got around the kind of fishing community, Brexit areas, they've got some interest up there, but I hope to God there's
Sure we
nobody
don't.
in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not the landslide. That's not predicting the landslide that it was. That's is it 84 seats, I think, as a majority.
Mm.
which is the same or roughly the same as Tories had previously. So,
how does it compare to Blair in 97?
his was 173, I think it was. So it's not in that scale of landslide, but it's still a extremely
Sizable.
comfortable, sizable majority.
Good old avalanche, yeah. Good grief. Oh well, I think all we can do now is sit and enjoy who's going to fall.
Sit and enjoy the Tories falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Go and open a bottle of wine and.
Now that sounds like an excellent plan, Val.
Mm.
I think we go and try and find joy where we can find it.
Yeah.
And knuckle down and fight on for the next 5 years.
Well, 2 years, because
2 years for the next Scottish election.
That really is when it's squeaky bum time. If we're sitting here looking at exit polls like that in 2 years' time, then we're kind of that's the hard stuff. But we'll see what happens.
The thing is, a lot can happen in 2 years. You never know.
Absolutely. I mean,
like, you know, I think what's not being mentioned in the campaign so much, and what is basically done for every Tory Prime Minister, is the question of the EU. And you know, every single Tory Prime Minister, the fact that they've pretty much all had to resign over like something to do with that, and Labour's like stance is not settled, so you don't know what can happen. Like a lot can happen in 2 years. A lot can happen. As we found.
Well, as I said, a week is a long time in politics. So 2 years is an eternity.
But for the Holyrood elections at that time, although the polls that have gone out again, using them as a source, support for the SNP has gone down, but support for independence hasn't gone down. It's stayed or been a bit more. So when it comes to Holyrood, that I would think would be a factor in it as well. So we can hope.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just happy to see. I mean, it is horrible. I don't want to like diminish that, but I'm really happy that the Tories are getting annihilated.
Yeah,
like,
of course. Yeah.
Look to the positives.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that note, I think we'll bring it to an end. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for everybody for listening. You can find all our podcasts at leftungag.org, as well as written articles, and you can sign up for our free newsletter there. You can also, if you're interested in joining our Signal group, we have a thriving community where you can chat to all of us and get involved with Ungagged. And if you enjoyed what we were talking about tonight, please give us 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you use. Until then, have fun, be good, and be lucky.
Yep.
Right, good night all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.